Alright, so in this video it's going to be a little different than what I normally post on this channel, but essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and make a SeaPerch robot that we use in my 7th grade tech ed class, and we model it in an Inventor. And my students usually complain about how long it takes because it's a lot of work to go through. I'm going to model it here as quickly as possible to get everything set up. So to start off with, I'm going to go through and get the pipes. And while it's loading up, if you're interested, I'll link the SeaPerch project down below. So if it's something you're interested in or something that your school is looking at, it's there and available for you. So we're using, we're using PVC pipes. They measure in at approximately 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to type in 3/4, get my initial setup there, and then I'll do another pipe, and they are going to be separated by 1/8 of an inch. So dimension between those two, 1/8 of an inch. I'll finish my sketch. We're going to have this first one be 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to, 6.5 inches. My bad. So I'll extrude that one out. I'm going to do a file save as. And we're going to save that in SeaPerch. This is going to be 6.5 pipe. We'll save that. And then we're going to go back in and edit that extrusion because there's no reason to go through and make a whole bunch of these. You just need to go through and actually edit the length. So we're going to have a 4.5 inch pipe. I'll do a file save as on that one. That's 4.5 pipe. And I'm just going through the list that's linked in the build manual. I believe it's page 3 of the build manual. I'm just going through and completing what it has there. So we have a 2.5 inch pipe. Do a file save as for that. Even though I didn't say that one right, let me go back and fix that save name. 2.5 pipe. Sorry about that. And we'll go down to the second column now. The second column has a 5 inch pipe, so we'll do that. And we'll continue to edit. There's 2 more pipes we need to do. We have a 4 inch pipe and a 1.5 inch pipe. So 4 inch pipe should be pretty easy. And the main reason I'm adding numbers to these while I'm doing this is because without doing that, it really becomes confusing what pipe is what when you go into assembly. If you have them clearly labeled, it's significantly easier to do your assembly of all the parts. Because while making one copy of each one of these pipes, there are a lot more to go through. Now, some of the pipes actually are going to have holes drilled in them. And the reason for that is because we need to be able to attach our motors, and we use zip ties for that in the SeaPerch project. So the 4.5 inch pipe is going to get some holes drilled in it, along with the 5 inch pipe. So I want to open up both of those because we need to make sure we get those done. So down here I have my 4.5 inch pipe. I'm going to go to my origin, open up my, let's go with YZ plane, and create a sketch on there. Now I'm going to right click and go over to slice so I can see inside of it, so I can actually set everything. I'm going to make a construction line from one side to the other, and then we'll use the circle tool, unselecting construction line. We're going to put in 3 circles. They're all going to be 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and I'm just going to set them equal to each other so that we're all good to go there. I really only need one dimension if I do that. From there, I'm going to dimension the circles going out from our origin. The farthest one out is 5 7/8, or 2 7/8, excuse me. Then we have our next one here. That's going to be 1 5/8. The great thing about Inventor is you can just use it as a calculator. You don't have to sit there and figure out what the decimals are. And the last one's 1 inch. I'm going to finish my sketch there. Go to extrude. I'll click on each of those circles where the line comes down from here. I'm going to cut it, and I want it to go both directions so it goes through. The distance here doesn't really matter because it's going all the way through. I'll hit OK, and now I'm going to save this one. That's going to be 4.5 inch pipe with holes. I just want to make sure it's very obvious what's what, so I can close that one out. Now I'm on the 5 inch pipe. I'm going to go back to my origin, my YZ plane, make a sketch, slice my graphics, and kind of rinse and repeat here. The only difference is there's some different measurements that we're doing. So I'm going to set my center line as a construction line just to make sure everything's centered and I don't have to do any additional work. There's going to be 3 holes. That one's going to be 0.25, and the other ones here will drop in nice and easy. Then we'll set them all equal to the one that we've given dimension to. and then we're dimension. I always like starting from the farthest one out because it has the easier spacing of everything, and I can usually more quickly get them done as far as the ordering done. It's really not that important, but it just makes it easier in my brain for what I'm doing. So I have those done there. I'll finish my sketch and extrude, and 1, 2, and 3. We're going to cut it and going both directions, and boom. And I just need to file save this as, and we're going to do 5-inch pipe with holes. And we already have all of our pipes created here in not much time. So what we're going to do now at this point is we're going to go into a new part. We need to make an elbow, and we also need to go through and make a T. And then we'll have pretty much all of the PVC done at this point. So I've measured my elbow already, but if you didn't, it's just taking a ruler and going through and kind of getting your basic measurements done. The easiest thing to do is to measure the height and the width. I like putting it on a table and doing that with the paper rulers included in the kits, but it's there. Then I measure the diameter of the hole. In that case, it happens to be 1 inch for both of these. So I'm going to go through and 1 inch, and then I'm going to kind of bring it down. The measurement here should line up exactly with that other line. You see the dotted line there. It's going to be 0.75. So this one, just double checking, should also be 0.75. So that looks correct. So I'm going to type in 0.75 and connect the dots. And we have that done. And now I'm going to extrude it. I'm going to extrude this the exact same distance I have here because that's going to allow me to put my fillets on everything. So as long as I have basically a square on this one and a square on that one, I'm in good shape. Now my fillet's going to be half of that. So the radius is going to be 1, which is diameter, divided by 2, which will give us the radius. I'll go back to select my features. I want to get the 2 long sides and the 2 long sides on the bottom. And then I need to get some short sides. So basically where these kind of things make the L, I'm going to get all 4 of those corners. Additionally, I'm going to get this one in the back, and I'll apply that. So I have the elbow set up here, ready to go. If I wanted to, I could add a little fillet in there. It does show it on the T, but for our representation, it's really not that important to do. If you want to, you can. The other thing I need to do, though, is go through and shell this so it's hollow. So I'll click on shell. The thickness is going to be 1/8 of an inch, or 0.125. And then I will shell the one surface and the other and hit OK, and that hollows those all the way out, all the way through. The last thing I need to do is right click on this and make a new sketch. I'm going to drill a hole, or I'm just going to make a sketch for a hole here. It's going to be 0.25 because that's the diameter of the hole we're drilling. I'm going to extrude that, cut, and distance all because I'm drilling this all the way through the back. I don't want to worry about the distance itself, and I have that done. So my elbow's taken care of. There's a little round part that needs to be there, but I'm not super worried about that. Again, as a general representation of what we need to do, it's not that important. So I'll go in and name that elbow. I'll save it, and then we'll make another new part. So go new, standard IPT. In this case, now we're going to do the T. The kind of setup's the same. You measure the total distance, which is 2.5. And the most important part of this is that the diameters of your T and the diameter of the elbow match. So in this case, it's 1. So I'm going to type in 1 there. And over here, I'm also going to type in 1. And then the other thing is that the heights match. So the total height has to be 1.75. So I'm going to make this thing 1 because it's going to be there. And then I'm going to dimension from this to that, from here to here. That's going to be 1.75. That's just giving me a baseline of how big all this stuff's going to be. And then I just need to measure my interiors, or I don't really need to do that for most stuff, but we go in here and connect some dots. And when I do that, I just want to make sure I dimension this bad boy, which is going to be 0.75. That's going to allow us to center everything up, and from here, we should be ready to go. We're going to give that one 0.75 as well. We'll bring that straight up. We have that. Again, it's 1 inch on each of those sides. I'll finish my sketch, and I'm going to extrude that thing a total of 1. So for the fillets on this, it's the same thing. It's going to be 0.5 or half of 1, whatever your extrusion is. I should have 3 perfect squares, so I'm going to go here for the long side, on the back side for the long side, and basically everywhere the L's meet. So there's an L here, 2, 3, 4. And if I spin this bad boy around, I have an L here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I have all of my fillets at this point. I'm just going to hit OK. From there, I'm going to shell this bad boy again. 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch, same thing. Remove my faces of 1, 2, and 3. I'll hit OK. And I have all of the PVC parts of my drawing totally done. SeaPerch is pretty much ready to go at this point. So I'll save that. That's all well and good. Now we're going to go through and actually start the assembly. There's a couple other pieces we need to make, like the noodle, which is basically just a really fat pipe. It's a pool noodle, and also the mesh. But I'm not worried about those right now. I want to get the structure of this thing together first. So I'm going to go into new. Instead of standard IPT, I'm going to just use standard IAM, which is a standard assembly. I'll create that. And the first piece I'm going to put in there is going to be the PVC. So let me get into the proper folder here, because for some reason it likes to default to a different folder and it drives me crazy. We'll go into SeaPerch. The very first thing I'm going to do is find the T-joint, which for some reason I named PVC. I don't know why I did that. But we'll go through. I'm going to have that once. I want 1. It's going to put in a nice metric. I want a total of 4 of them. So I'm going to just click on 4 of them. Once I'm done, I'll right click and hit OK. In constraints, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to flush the tops of all of them. It's incredibly important that the tops of all these are the exact same height. If they are not, this will not work. So I'm just going to make sure all of the tops of these are flush and set together. There's some other flushes that we'll do in a little bit, but for the beginning pieces, that's what we need to do. Now, what I want to do as well is I want to connect them together, and they're connected together by the 4-inch pipe. So again, this is why it's really nice when you name them, because you just go quickly in here and get them set up. So at this point, I'm going to constrain. This is going to be an insert constraint. Whenever you put 2 circles together, insert's the way you want to go. So insert this one onto there, and the offset's going to be 0.5 or 1/2 inch. If it comes out like that, just change that to a -0.5, and it should insert in there. I'll do the same thing with this one over here. So we're insert that onto that, -0.5. It will pop it in there, or when we put a negative sign in properly, it will do that, and I'll apply it. And then I'm going to also insert this onto there, put that in at a -0.5. And you might have, depending on how you did this, you may have to do a +0.5 or a -0.5. It's not that important, but you want to make sure it's not separated. You want to make sure it's on there. So -0.5, apply that. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back into my main area. I'm going to flush the fronts of these. And that should make everything else ready to go. The last thing I want to do is my very first PVC, I'm actually going to what's called ground it. I'm going to make sure it stays where it's at so it doesn't move anywhere. To do that, very simply, just right click on PVC1, or in your case T1 if you named it that, and you're going to go over to ground it. It takes a little thumbtack in there, so now when I move other things, no matter what I do, that one does not move, which makes life a whole lot easier. From here, there are 1.5 inch pipes on all of the ends of these, so I'm going to go in place. I'll find my 1.5 inch pipe, and I'm going to place in the 4 of those. Once I'm done, I'll right click OK. We'll go to constrain. We'll go to insert, and I want to insert this onto there, -0.5. And I'm just repeating this process. I could do all of these as sub-assemblies, like do one assembly and just bring the whole thing in. But for a project this small, not really necessary. Again, you could do it, but it's highly unnecessary to do it for this simple of an assembly for the general basis here. So we have those. Now we're going to go in to the T's. On this back row of T's, I'm going to put in a 2.5 inch. So we'll place in our 2.5 inch once it wants to pop up here. Our 2.5 inch pipe, there's 2 of those, so 1 and 2. And again, the constraints here really don't change. It's insert constraints. We're going to type that in -0.5. And the same thing with this one. Put it in -0.5 and apply it. The only other thing I want to do is I want to get the last set of pipes in here. And they're going to be the 5-inch pipes with holes. It's important that we know that those are the 5-inch ones with holes. So I'll place those in there. 5-inch pipe with holes. And we're going to go 1 and 2. We'll constrain those using the insert constraints again. Nothing too earth-shattering here. Get that one. Get that one, and we're set up as far as our initial things. We're going to have some other things connecting these together, but for our beginning parts, that's all we have. So from here, we're going to place in our elbows. I'm going to start off with all the bottom elbows, and then I'll place in some other elbows here momentarily. So I'll find my elbows. I need 4 of them to get started with. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll right click and hit OK. And then again, go to Constraint, Insert. We're going to insert all these -0.5 on the ends of what we have with everything so far. So it's not too crazy. Goes pretty fast if you know what you're doing and you have a plan of attack, which it gives you. And now what I want to do is I want to make sure the tops of these are flush with the tops of that. The reason why I say that is because these can spin right now if we wanted them to. They would be able to spin. See how that one spins? I don't want that. Nothing else spins because I have that one locked and it's flush. But those two in the back spin right now. So I'm going to go into Constraint and Flush. And why these need to be the same height is because when I flush this and this, if they're not the exact same height, I will get an error message. So they have to be the exact same height. We have that set. And then these guys need to be at 90-degree angles. So what I'm going to do at this case is I'm going to go over to the angle constraint. I want to choose this first option, a directed angle. I'll first start off by going in here, selecting the top of the T and the top of this elbow, and they're at 0 degrees right now. I'm going to change that to 90. You see how it rolled over that way? Let's try -90. It's still kept there, and let's try 270 just to see if it wants to go. So that one's not rolling over anywhere, and that's fine. I'll apply that. That means, oh, it did roll over. Okay. Sometimes Inventor doesn't update those properly or quickly sometimes. So if they don't roll over, all you do is take this whole thing and drag it over there. But in this case, it did work properly for us. So I'm going to put that one at 90 degrees and I'll apply it. Okay. So we have that set. The next step that we need to do is we need to add on the pieces that connect these. So I'm going to go to Place, and that is a 4.5-inch pipe, one without holes. I'll place that one in there, and that's the only 4.5-inch pipe, I believe. So I'm going to constrain that. We're going to insert this guy into there, -0.5, and then this one into there, -0.5, and apply it. Now everything is stuck together. Nothing should move on this. If anything moves, that means I have a missing constraint. But for our drawing purposes right now, it does not happen. So I'm going to go in and place on 2 more elbows here to connect those, and then the 4.5-inch pipe with the holes is going to go in. So elbow, we'll grab 2 more of those. We're still going to need 4 more, but I like to try to do this in stages. It's completely up to you. You could bring on all your parts, but that's not my preferred method, just because I think you can get lost very easily with a ton of parts in all different places. So -0.5 on that. The other thing I'm going to do is I need to turn these at 90 degrees. So I'm going to go to angle constraint, directed angle. I'll select the flat side of that T and then the flat side of this. I'm going to change that to 90. That changed the wrong way, so let's go 270. It should spin around. Let's apply it, and it did. And then we're going to do the same thing here, where we're going to take this one, flat side here, and the flat side of that, and change it to 90. Hit apply. And that's all well and good. Then I'll find my 4.5-inch pipe with holes, open that up, hit OK, constrain it, and we will insert this one onto there of -0.5. And if I really wanted to, I could insert this on here, but there's no reason to. It's already set up. There's 0 reason to do that. So now I'm going to put in the back pipes here, so we'll rotate around so we can see a little better. I'm going to place in, and those are 2 5-inch pipes. So 1 and 2. And I'll constrain those in again with the insert constraint of -0.5. And this one here of -0.5. Okay, so we have those there. Now I'm going to go in and place 4 more elbows in. And this is one of the spots where if you did not make an elbow that is perfectly symmetrical, which means the height here is the same as the width on that. If they're not the same, you will have issues on this. So that's a really quick and easy way to determine if you have problems and you just need to go back and fix it. We're going to do that, negative 0.5. And we're just going around to all of the pipe ends that we have sticking up remaining. Okay, so we have that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my angles. I'm going to make sure that I'm on directed angle. The front of this is going to set up and be 0 to that, so it can't spin. Same with this back elbow is going to be with the back top elbow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spin this around, or I can leave it where it's at. It doesn't really matter. If I spun it around, I could click on the front of this and the front side of that, or I can click it on here and just change it to 180 and spin it around. Either way, totally fine, doesn't really matter. So we're going to go in, that's going to be 180, and I have that, I'll apply it, and then it's a matter of placing in my last 2 pipes, which are 6.5 inch pipes. If I've done everything correctly, these should line up without any issue. So we'll put in the 2, I'll right click, constrain these, insert, let's insert from there to there, negative 0.5. Apply that one, and then this one to here, negative 0.5. All right, so at that point, we have the structure of the SeaPerch totally, completely done. No question about it. The only other things I'm missing are the mesh at the bottom and also the noodles. So let's go through and create those very quickly. But before I do that, I'm going to save this as assembly, just so that I have the file itself ready to go. In case Inventor crashes or I do something stupid or time runs out here. So let's go through and clean up and get rid of any files we don't need. And then I'm going to go to New, Standard IPT. The noodle, not too big of a deal. I know from experience that we're going to cut the noodle down a little bit, but you get a length of noodle that is larger than what you need. It's 2.5 inches diameter, and then that is going to be, let's say, 3/4 of an inch. That hole is actually a little bit smaller, but not super important for what we're doing right now. And I'm going to extrude just that portion of it, let's say 2.5. I'm also going to give it a little color here real quick just to kind of show that it's a little separate from everything. I believe this blue dark sky looks decent compared to, it will look decent on there. So that's what I'm going to use. So now I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to call it noodle. We'll save it. And then back in assembly land, I can go in and place that on there. And we need 2 of them, 1 on each side. So 1, 2. And then I'll constrain that. Another insert constraint. That's kind of all we do. Let's try setting it off at 3. And it's going the wrong way. So let's try -3. It's going to have to be bigger, so -5. That looks good. Again, this part's not that important, but consistency is. So we'll have that there. The noodle's on. I'm going to save this again. And then the last piece that we need to do is the mesh. The mesh is one of those pieces that you can do the actual correct way if you want to spend a lot of time, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through and just try to make this as best as possible. So I'm going to start with a 2D sketch. I'm going to go for my top view on this one. The mesh, when you measure it, is 12 by 8. I'm actually going to make mine just a little bit larger. I'm going to do 13 by 9. I'm going to increase it by 1 inch in each direction. I'll finish my sketch, extrude it, and I'm going to do it by 1/16 of an inch because it's not super thick. From there, I have this big kind of thing, and I'm going to make a sketch on that top view here. So go down to this bottom corner. I'm going to use a 3-point rectangle because everything's kind of at an angle. So we're going to bring that here, coming out. It's going to be 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to set that at 40 degrees. That sounds good. There's no real right or wrong answer here. And then I'm going to go 0.25 again to get my diamond set up. From there, I'm just going to drag it around to roughly the corner edges here. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to cut off some of this remaining stuff here. But I'll finish my sketch. I'm going to extrude just that little piece, and I'm going to cut it out and hit OK. From there, I'm going to go in and use my rectangular pattern tool, and that's found right here. I'm going to click on Extrusion 2, then I'm going to go Direction 1. I'll click on this line. We'll flip that direction so it's heading up, and we want to change the spacing. So let's say I want the 0.375. That looks fine for what we're doing. There's going to be a little space there. And then I need to make sure they go all the way to the edges. So let's say 30 of them. Nope, that's way too many. Let's start 20 of them. That's not enough. 25. Let's say 24. That looks like it's perfect. So I'll hit OK. And we have the beginnings of this set up. Now I need to do the exact same thing, but for the alternating rows. So I'm going to do new sketch. It always wants to bring me back to my origin. But I'm going to go in here, 3-point rectangle again. And I'm just going to try to make this all along that same line. So this guy's going to be 0.25 at a 40-degree angle. If that does that, you don't have to go through. Sometimes it already knows the angle because it's parallel, so don't worry about that. We're just going to make that 0.25, click, and then bring it down 0.25, enter. It's the exact same size as this one, so I'll finish my sketch. We'll do an extrusion cut, and then we're just rinse and repeat. Go in here, select extrusion 3, direction is going to be along that vertical line. We have to switch it. We use 0.375, and we had, what, 24 of them, I think? Let's see. Yep, that gets us to the edge. So we'll hit OK, and you see how we have this kind of zigzag pattern going on. At this point, I'm going to go into rectangular pattern. I'll select rectangular pattern 2 and rectangular pattern 1. The direction, I'm going to click on my horizontal line, and then I need to play with my spacing. So I'm going to try 0.5. That seems to be pretty close. If I do 0.375, that's not enough. 0.45. Sure, that looks good. Again, I'm not going for complete accuracy on this one. I'm just going for a realistic look. And then I'm going to say I want 20 of them. Nope. 30 of them. Maybe 28. 29. There we go. Hit OK. And that's going to go through and do some stuff, which is totally fine. It'll take a second or two to process, and this is why we always go through and save our work before it does it. If Inventor crashes here, not a big deal, but it should go through and do all of this. While we're waiting for Inventor to do its thing or to crash out, let's just talk a little bit about the thought process behind this. When we're making the pipes, you really only need to measure the diameter one time, and then you can just change the extrusion every time you want to go from there. So that part's easy. And then the second thing you have to do is just go through and make the T's and elbows. I always like making those as kind of block pieces and rounding them off, but you could do sweeps or a whole bunch of other things to get them started there. So I have this now, it's ready to go. You can see that this uses a little bit more graphically intense, but I'm gonna go in and make a new sketch. And the very last thing I wanna do here is I wanna get rid of these edges because they're kind of ugly and don't look real nice. So I'm gonna go into a regular 2-point rectangle. I'll start off probably just above this point here. That should hopefully make things a little bit easier for us. And that is going to be a total of 12 by 8. So that's great. And then I'll start off on my bottom corner from here. And I'm going to go all the way up to, let's go outside the part. I'll finish my sketch. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to get rid of this area. So I'm going to extrude. Just choose the outside rectangle and we're going to cut it down 1/16 of an inch. Again, Inventor may not be happy when you do this, so just give it some time if it's freaking out or doing its thing. But while we're waiting here, essentially all we're doing is getting rid of the pieces that we do or don't need. I might have just crashed Inventor. I apologize if I did. But once we have this mesh done and set, it's a pretty simple process after that. We're going to use a couple of flushes, a couple of angle constraints, and we're also going to use something called tangent, which basically is where a circle is meeting one point of something at that one exact point, and that's it. So Inventor, it looks like may have done what I wanted, or may have died. It's thinking about it. So we're going to try cutting that out. If it doesn't work, not a big deal. But we'll go through here, and if it doesn't work, I'm just going to make a rectangular plane, but it did. Awesome. So I can change the color on this if I want. I'm just going to try to see if I can find like a black. I can. So again, we're killing Inventor here a little bit. Sorry, Inventor. And then I'm going to do a file save as and call this mesh. And once that saves, we're going to go back into our assembly. Look at that. That's beautiful. Looks exactly like the mesh. We're going to go place in our mesh now that we have that done. We'll open it up. We'll hit OK. And there we go. We have that done. The first thing I like to do on this is I'm going to go into Constraint, and I'm going to find an angle constraint here. Directed angle again. I'll find a flat side over here. And I want to set that at a 0-degree angle to this guy here. I basically just don't want this thing turning or doing anything that I don't want it to do necessarily. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's say, flush this. So I'm going to flush it here. And sometimes the order matters, so this may give us some problems, it may not, but we're going to try it and see what we can do. So I'm going to flush that up, and basically I want to make sure this gets pulled up to the front. So I'm just going to try the offsets of seeing what we can do to get that centered up. -2 looks like it's going to work for my example here, so I'm going to hit apply, and then I need to go through and I'm going to do the same thing flush-wise. I want to flush this side here with that elbow with the front side of this. Right there is fine. I'm going to go back to my top view, and we're going to try some offsets to see exactly where it's at. Looks like 5.5. 5 3/4. 5 3/4 looks like it's going to work for us. And it's okay that there's some overlap. There is on the real thing as well. I'll apply that. And then the last thing I want to do, because right now, that's all well and good, but it can move up and down. I need to use a tangent constraint. So I'm going to go to Constraint, and tangent constraint is kind of right in the middle of your assembly constraints. So tangent, and I'm going to choose the outside of any of the elbows or T's. I'm going to choose this one. And then I'm going to pick a flat surface on here. Doesn't matter which one. I'll hit apply. And now that thing is locked in place. It's not going anywhere. And we have our SeaPerch totally done. All the parts associated with the assembly is all done of the structure and frame. If you have questions on this, please let me know. I'd be happy to take a look and see how I can help you out with that. But that's a very quick and easy way of getting the SeaPerch stuff done in Inventor in a pretty decent manner.